All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another one of my interviews here on Drip Talk with Blake Roberts. It has been a while since I've done one of these. It's been since last year, December. So I'm glad to be back. Today, I have a very special guest with me. He is a former professional wrestler and NFL player. He has been with uh, multiple different companies as WWF, ECW, NWA, WCCW, USWA, GWF, and much, much more. He was one half of ECW stable Baldies. He teamed up with John Tatum. He also had a little bit of a team with Stone Cold Steve Austin earlier up in his career. He is no other than Rod Price. So we will get him on in here, and then we'll start on with the interview.
Hey, I'm here.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How are you? Yeah, of course. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you.
That's good. All right. Yeah. Thank you for coming on and taking your time to do this.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So the first question I will ask you is, when did you start doing wrestling? What made you want to get into it?
When I was a kid, like 6, 8 years old, I wanted to be a professional football player. I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and it's just something I wanted to do. My grandfather was a plumber, and he influenced me a lot. I fell back on that later in life, but that was my two goals in life. Those were my dreams as a young man, and I was just one of the fortunate people that were able to fulfill my dreams. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, definitely. You got into the NFL and WWE, so that's pretty cool that you got to do both of things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Who helped you get into the wrestling business? Some trainers that helped you?
Well, and I can't nail down one person because I've had so many that have helped me in wrestling. But one of the main guys was Red Bastien. He trained Sting, and he trained the Ultimate Warrior, David Sheldon, the Angel of Death. He trained a lot of guys, and I just happened I happened to be doing a commercial, and it was a print ad as a professional wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And he happened to be there. Billy Anderson happened to be there. And we were goofing around, we were talking, and either Red or Billy Anderson gave me a card and said, "Hey, if you really want to pursue this, come see me, call
me." Mm-hmm.
And that was my way into professional wrestling, because I pursued that later on. I kicked around the NFL for 2 or 3 years of being on practice squads, being cut, going and playing semi-pro football. And after about a year of that, I looked up Red Bastien and started getting involved with wrestling. And I would train for a while. I'd go play football for a while. I'd come back and train wrestling. So with wrestling, it's something you have to do every day. It's something you have to commit 100% to. And I was 50 between football and wrestling. And it just happened. I had some injuries, had some surgeries on my knee, and was losing speed. And you got to have that speed to play. And I decided that year I spent 2 weeks. My last time was 2 weeks in San Francisco at a preseason game, and I still got a picture of it. And I was beat up, man. That half step was killing me, and that was my crossroads right there. It was like it's time to pursue something else, and professional wrestling was going to be it.
Right. Yeah, football wore you all out with everything that it put you through, and then your next thing was on to wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah, because you go through camp and you get beat up in camp, and then
Yeah.
they may cut you and bring you back, and that happened to me a lot. But it could be the next week. That happened one time, and then another time it could be 4 or 5 weeks. So they always said, you got to stay in shape. We may pick up the phone and call you tomorrow. So I went and played when I was living in Los Angeles. I played in what they called the Jungle League, which was all the games were in Compton. And
Yeah.
it was brutal. It was brutal, man. And I knew how to fight before I got in there. By the time I was done with semi-pro football, I really knew how to
fight. Right.
But it was good. And, after that, I pursued, got with Red Bastien. I got with Mondo Guerrero, Billy Anderson, and kind of sporadically trained and worked a little bit in LA area, and then went to Texas almost immediately. Within a year, I was in Texas.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. And then talking about football, I mean, the Super Bowl is coming up this Sunday. Just to bring it up, who are you going to be rooting for?
The only thing that I'll probably lean towards Seattle because Sam Donaldson. I'm a big USC fan. I had my pro day at USC, so that's where I'm headed. So
yeah, I'm going for them too. So
good deal. Yeah, the Patriots. I'm still, I'm a Raider fan at heart, and I still can't get over that tough rule thing. I really hate the Patriots. So I'm glad we have Tom Brady in the Raiders organization. But as far as having ever to pull for the Patriots, I just can't do it.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah. While watching wrestling growing up, if you did, who were like some of your favorite wrestlers growing up and watching?
Well, when I was young and watching, it was I grew up in Indiana. I would go to school. I'd come out to go back to Indiana from California when I was young and work with my grandfather. And he was a plumber. He got me the fever of that. But AWA was big in that. And it was all, Dick the Bruiser, Nick Bockwinkel. I mean, that's all they had on. It wasn't like today where you could watch every state. It was, territories and localized them.
Yeah, definitely.
And the funny thing about it, about the middle of my career or earlier in my career, I got to work for Dick the Bruiser. So
you're right.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah. And talking about that, how was that getting to work with them after watching them growing up, the company, and then getting to work for them?
I was a mark to get into the business, and you go in the ring and you work. I've worked with so many veterans that I always looked up to, and they always accepted me, always helped me. They are always helping me, and I wasn't so starstruck, because I didn't want to mark out for them, especially if I'm working for their promotion. So
right.
Outside I was being cool, but inside I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
I thought it was really
cool. I mean, yeah. I don't blame you. Do you still keep up with the business nowadays? Do you watch it at all still?
I try to. It's changed so much,
Oh yeah.
It's hard to follow. It's hard for me to follow, what they're doing. We used to, have psychology and do matches, and there was a reason why we did certain things, and they go out and do all these. I mean, they're great athletes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking them. It's just not what we used to do.
Oh yeah.
Because we couldn't do that every night.
Yep.
There's no way we could put our body. We were beat up from putting our bodies through what we did, let alone what the athletes are doing now, the wrestlers are doing now.
Oh yeah, it's completely different. I 100% agree with you. Way different. Is there anybody who inspired you, like family and or wrestling wise, to get into the best wrestling business?
No, nobody. They supported, my family supported me. They're my dad and my mom, and my sisters. They're my biggest fans, besides my wife. But they never, said, you ought to go do this. Why don't you go do that professional wrestling? None of my family ever said that. So,
yeah.
I tried to talk to my dad about it. And he was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Talking to your parents about it is like, then they don't want you to get hurt. And then, it's, yeah.
No, yeah, that's part of it,
Yeah. Who would you say has been?
Mom,
yeah, go ahead.
Whenever I was wrestling in Texas and my mom could go, she'd be in the front row every time.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome support. That's great that she went there and supported you,
Yeah. I mean, great support, great family. You can't ask for better people, man.
Definitely. Who would you say has been the stiffest wrestler you've gone in the ring with in your career?
Man, I've been in the ring with so many just top talent. It's really hard for me to put a finger on, one guy. I mean, I wrestled Butch Reed. I wrestled The Rock. I've wrestled, almost every name in the business I've been in the ring with, and the talent level is so good. It's too hard for me to say, oh, well, he was better than this, because they were all good. In my mind, my heart, they're all on the same level. They're just legends.
Yeah. Yep. What would you consider to be a weakness and then a strength of yours in the wrestling business?
Probably being big and could work. There was a lot of big guys, but they couldn't go like I could go. I could wrestle a middleweight, and I could wrestle a super heavyweight. I just was trained and taught that no matter who's in that ring, you're going to have a match with, no matter what the size. And that was always my asset.
Definitely. Yep. Out of all the wrestling companies you've got to wrestle for, what company would you say has been like your all-time favorite?
Oh, hands down, was ECW.
Oh yeah.
it was that crazy, but it was a good time, and I had more fun because I was winding down at that time, and I was blessed to be able to go out and work with ECW, and I got to work with Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Tommy Dreamer, everybody there. So the Dudleys had Jack Victory as my tag partner at times. I had One Man Gang as my tag partner at times. So it was a good time, man. We had fun.
Oh, definitely. I bet ECW was a wild company.
It was. It was truly an experience.
I bet. And then, are there any like crazy stories or like backstage stories that you care to tell from your time in ECW?
I can't tell them without getting people in trouble. It was just I never had any problem with anybody. I worked with New Jack. I don't know how many times. Got him over. It's just I never had a problem. There was no, I never had any physical fights or altercations with anybody in the back. Chris Adams, I did, but ECW wise, man, it was good. I was treated well, and it's one of my fondest memories of wrestling.
Definitely. Yeah. Out of all the wrestling names you've gone under, which names have been your favorite?
Well, I think breaking in, I came in as Tim Brooks asked me, "What are you going by?" And I said, "California Stud." He was like, "Okay." And then after about a year of that, Gary Hart goes, "All right, we're gonna keep the California Stud, but we're gonna name you Rugged Rod Price." So Gary Hart gave me that, and I rode with that a long time. ECW kind of went towards the Hardway, and the reason I got that was more of a nickname than a wrestling name. And I'm gonna tell a story on Tommy Dreamer. It was like every time we wrestled and we were gonna get juice, I always had the blades ready, and somehow Tommy would pick up something. It could be the lightest thing in the world, but he'd hit me with it just right and just hardway me open.
Oh wow!
and it was only him, and I love nothing against Tommy. It was just that factor. It was just that factor that whenever Tommy was in there, I knew I was going to get Hardway. And gang started to call me, Hardway, you got Hardway. So that's how I got, took that name.
Oh wow, that's awesome. But it's weird that it was just with Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah, I love Tommy. Tommy's a good guy.
Man. Yeah, he was great. In your early years, like when you went under the California Stud, you had blonde, long hair, and then later in your career, you had no hair. When did you decide to get it cut off and whatever?
Well, I decided to shave my head when I was when I went to Europe, Germany, and I wrestled for Otto Wanz. It kind of had played itself out. I was kind of wanting to. I'd shave. The funny thing about it, my first year in college, I had long hair. My hair was like down to here, and then as my hair receded, I shaved my head, and I kind of grew it out here and there, but I don't know. When I was in Germany, I just said, I'm going to go ahead. And I kind of there for a while. I looked like Kevin Sullivan with thin hair on top and blonde with dark roots, and then I just said I'm just going to shave it. So when I came back after I did that tour in Germany, I went ahead and just shaved my head. When I came back to the Sportatorium, I came back with the shaved head, we did. I think the first couple of things we did, one was a pay-per-view, and I'm pretty sure I'd shaved my head by then.
Right. Yeah. And then I see you are fairly open about your relationship with Jesus. And as a Christian myself, hugely open about it. And I do stuff within like my church, and I do like a Bible study, and I do like stuff like that in social media while I post stuff like that and stuff with a group of friends from my church.
Favorite book right there.
Oh yeah, I have mine right over there. And since following and him and your testimony story, if you don't mind sharing or whatnot.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. That's my favorite subject. It's talking about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We talked about, did any of your family ever support you? Well, my dad was a Baptist preacher, and he loved me, supported me. I grew up in a Christian school, and I never surrendered my life to Christ until I was about 51 years old. I always thought that I was saved, that I knew Jesus, but it wasn't a heart knowledge, it was a head knowledge, because I grew up in church. I knew, somebody asked me, tell me about Jesus. I could tell you about Jesus, but he didn't live inside me. Right. And I had, the Lord gets your attention sometimes by putting you on your back. And I had a vehicle hit me from behind going 80 miles an hour and broke my neck. And I had that done, and I kind of took it as a wake-up call, but being the hard-necked or stiff-necked and hard-headed person I was, I almost committed again. I was living a better life, but I wasn't living Jesus. And the accident spread out. I was 42 when I got hit. By the time I was 48, 49, I've been having surgeries like 1 or 2 a year for the last 9 years. And most of it's because of the car accident. I've got some that I had from wrestling and football, but the car accident really, really took a toll. And it wasn't till I got up to go to work one day, and I went to get in my truck, and my back just snapped off the ground. My neighbor came over and saw me laying there. He goes, "How long have you been there?" I go, "I don't know. What time is it?" Because I leave to go to work at 4:30, and it was 7 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
And he got me up and got me in, and went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Your back, it's done." He said, "You need surgery now." And he gave me some cortisone shots in my back and gave me some pain pills. And he said, "Look, let's let you get a little strength back, and then we'll do surgery." Well, I got to feeling better and went back to work and was doing all right. And I came home one day, and I was just done. I called my boss that day and said, I can't do what I need to do and feel like the way I do. And Lord, he took away my job, almost lost my house. He took everything away from me. My physical body, my income, my home. And it wasn't until I was that broken, the old saying, he's got to break you to make you, is so true, because that's how far the Lord had to break me. He spared my life in the wreck, and I see that later, but not until that point where I was that broken did I finally just say, "You know what, Lord, from this day on, I surrendered my life to you. I gave my life to Christ. And doing that doesn't turn your circumstances around, but he has given me back everything that I lost. I have better health. I still got to get a knee replaced this coming October, but I'm able to move around, function. I can do things. I'm a lot better off than a lot of guys that I wrestled with, even after I've had almost 30 surgeries. But
yeah.
I could, once I committed myself to Christ, I started reading my Bible, and I was reading it, and then the Holy Spirit just started filling me where I had that hunger, and I still have that hunger. And came down to church. I met my beautiful wife, and she's a good Christian lady, and that's been just tremendous in my life. And I'm surrounded by people that love the Lord, and we have our Bible studies. We grow in Christ, and I've got an opportunity where I'm starting a wrestling school in Dallas, and we're having tryouts on February 21st. But I told the Lord, I prayed about this for 2 years, and I told the Lord, I want one more opportunity to be able to teach, to be around some youth that I can lead and show Jesus to them, to these kids that have probably never even heard about Jesus in their life. And that's what I wanted to do so bad. And the Lord opened up an opportunity for me. And I told him, I said, yeah, I'm going to teach them how to wrestle, but I'm also going to teach them about you. And that's my promise, and that's what I'm going to do. Everywhere I go, man, I can't help it. I get some of my New Testament from the church. I put a track in it if I go to the gas station. I put one out. If I'm talking to somebody, I give them a track. I mean, I love the Lord. I don't want to see anybody go to hell. I want to see everybody go to heaven. And the only way you can do that is you've got to talk to people and tell them about Jesus.
Wow, that was great. Great story.
It's the Lord's been so good to me, throughout my life. He's blessed me so much. And when I surrendered my life, and I said, Lord, I don't know how many years you're going to give me, but every year that you give me, I'm going to live it for you. And I'm going to tell everybody that will stop and listen, or I can get them for 5 minutes attention about Jesus. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Definitely. Wow, that's great. Yeah, because I go every Wednesday. I have this youth group that I go to for my church. And like every November, we go to youth and young adult, like big church thing in Illinois. It's called Thrive, and we go there, and it's like a 3-day youth and young adult conference. And I've been going for probably like 5 or 4 years now, and it's just been every other year. It wasn't really getting to me. I enjoyed going, but this last November, it really touched me, and I've felt the Lord move and do something in my life, because I never really had friends before. I never really put my life fully in his hands like have now. And I mean, now I have a big group of godly friends that, like I mentioned, do a Bible study. We hang out all the time. We do all of this, and it's been an amazing journey since following him, like 100%.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. That's what it's all about. And you're not truly happy in Christ until you give everything. You've got to give him. He's got to be Lord of your life. And until that, you're a miserable Christian because you have inwardly the Spirit's telling you to do these things, but you're fighting the flesh and you're like, oh, I'll get around to it or this or that. Until you give everything to Jesus, you'll never be happy, completely happy. And when I give everything to the Lord and just trust Him with everything, I don't worry about nothing. You know, I have problems like everybody else. You know, I have family problems with drugs and that, and I know I can't fix them. I can't do anything for them. But I know prayer is a powerful thing, and I know the Lord. He doesn't see only the beginning; He sees the whole picture from beginning to end. That's what He's. Where we're just looking at this little frame right now. So you just trust Him. He knows better, man. He's God Almighty, brother.
Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you for sharing that and talking about that. It was amazing.
I'd rather talk about Jesus than me for sure.
Oh yeah. All right.
The only thing I'd like to, if you allow me, I just want to plug our new promotion coming up. It's going to be in the Dallas Metroplex area. It's called Wrestling Texas. It's Wrestling World Texas. It's in Carrollton, Texas. Jaden Frost, he's a kid that I started to train 30 years ago. And he went off and did some other things. He's a born-again Christian. I have Mark Lawrence is going to be part of that promotion. My old partner, John Tatum, is part of that promotion.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to do, I'm doing the school, but they're going to start doing shows in the last weekend in March. I think it's around the 20th. It's the date's the 20th or 21st of March. We're going to start doing weekly shows every Friday night. But I appreciate that plug, man. I wanted to get that in.
Yeah, of course.
I told Jim to get that in, man. So I'm getting in a cheap plug.
I don't mind, of course. Whatever you want. And I'm glad that you're starting to. That's amazing. And with John Tatum, and I know who Mark Lawrence is. Yeah, that's going to be great. I wish you the best success with that.
I appreciate that. We're going to have a lot of surprises. We're going to have a lot of people showing up that will shock a lot of wrestling fans because they haven't heard the names for so long that live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You know, I know John's going to bring in Lynn Denton, the grappler. He's coming in on the first show, so.
Nice.
We're gonna have a lot of guests that we're not gonna announce. People just got to show up to see who's coming.
Oh yeah, we just got a one-of-one announcement right now. All right, that's awesome. What was your reaction to getting asked to wrestle and work for ECW for the first time? How did that come about?
I talked with Tommy Dreamer, and I was still in Dallas, and this was years before, and I was still going to Japan at the time from Dallas, and Tommy wanted me to come there, and I was like, you know, the base for the Japanese company was out of Dallas, so if I moved east, I was going to miss out on that. So I kind of passed at the time. And then a few years later, I got the opportunity. They were, I want to say, and I'm really positive that Scott Putski had called me and we were talking. He said, Tommy Dreamer was asking about you, about going to ECW, man. He goes, you want me to tell him? I said, yeah, tell him I'm interested. So I didn't hear anything for a while, and I thought, well, you know how the business is. Maybe it wasn't going to happen. And in that time, while I was waiting for to hear back from them, I guess I was working local independents, and I met Rodney and Jazz.
Okay, yeah.
And Rodney Begno and Colleen Begno, but she wrestled in WWE as Jazz, and Rodney is Rodney Mack. But I had an opportunity. I was training students then, and they were two of my students at the time, and we became very good friends. We're still good friends to this day. But you know, I look back and I laugh. It's like the Lord just, when you're not even in the will of the Lord, he puts you where he wants you to be. You know, it's amazing. But I had trained with them. I trained them. I gave them the tools they needed to be successful in the business. You know, they had the basic tools where you could go and you could work a match, you can do whatever. And when I went up to ECW, not long, maybe a couple of months, Jazz came to one of the ECW shows and was working out in the ring, and I could see all these people, you know, they were talking, and Jason Knight came over to me and said, "Did you train Jazz?" And I said, "Yeah, she was one of my students." He said, "Can she work?" I said, "Absolutely." I go, "Get in there with her." So Jason got in there and had a match with her. Paulie saw it and signed Jazz to a contract almost right after that.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So you know, I'm thankful and humbled to be, you know, have just a small part of Jazz and Rodney's life, you know, and like I said, they're good friends. We're good friends still.
Oh yeah, they're great. I met Jazz at WrestleCon last year, and she's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good gal.
What about WWF? How did you get in contact with them to work for WWF?
Well, I came. I'm trying to get the timeline. I came back and came back from Germany, and we were supposed to do something with. In fact, I met Dreamer too when we were working in the USWA, WWF at the time, and ECW. We're all kind of doing combined shows with, you know, each other's talent. You know, they had some of their young talent. That's when I met Kane. I knew Glenn before he was Kane, so I met him, and but they had talent like that was in there, and that's when I first met Dreamer. And then I moved down to Lafayette after that, and that's when I met Rodney and Jazz. And right in between, I was working in Dallas at the Sportatorium, and Bruce Pritchard called the house and left a message at my parents' house. And I just happened to come by and got the message where they were going to be in the area and wanted me to come down and work some dark matches for them. And, you know, we worked all through Dallas, Louisiana, a little bit of Oklahoma back then, and there for probably a couple of years. You know, I wouldn't be a regular on them, but whenever they would come down the area, I'd go down, and if they wanted to look at talent or something, I would go in and have a dark match with a lot of people. So that's what that came about. And I had just happened to work Rock on Raw one night, so that was a thrill back then too. So.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Could you share about that, like memories and like moments from that? Because I bet that was really huge for you.
Yeah, well, just a lot of guys I knew that were already up there, but some of the guys like Rock, I knew of him, but I've never met him in person until then. And so, we went out and we had like 3 minutes, and I got in about a minute of heat and let him get his finish. That's what they wanted, and what I gave him. So,
right, it's awesome.
But it was fun. I enjoyed meeting all the boys. Had a good time.
Of course, yeah, everybody in the locker room and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because it's different up there. Money changes things, because some of the guys you knew before they made money weren't the same people you met at WWE, but and then later on we laugh about it and go, yeah, I got a little full of myself, So it happens.
Yeah.
We're all young guys. We're young men, so it happens.
Yep. Out of all the matches you got to do from ECW, what one would you state as like your favorite, or maybe like a couple of your favorite matches from ECW?
I worked with Rob Van Dam on a few matches. I had a match. They wanted a match with Rob and somebody that, was going to give it to him, because he was going to Japan. And they work different over there, a little stiffer. And Paulie said, look, work snug with him and give him a good match. So I went out there and beat him up for a while, and he beat me up for a while. But it was a good match. He got the job in Japan, so
that's good.
But I enjoyed working with Rob Van Dam. I love working with the Dudleys. I loved working with Sabu. It was just everybody was good to me, and I was treated well by everybody, and I loved working with everybody. Worked at Harlem Angel. I worked with Vito.
Yeah.
It was a good time. I had fun with Jack Victory. I had fun with the sign guy. Like I said, it was a fun way to kind of step away. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Who would you say is like one wrestler that you never got in the ring with that you maybe wish you could have, if there was any?
Man, I don't know. There's probably several that I'll think of after we end this podcast. Maybe Bret Hart would have been one of them. I'd love to have a match with him. I worked with JBL. I worked with him so much in Texas. So going Texas and Japan, and I love Johnny too. And I was so happy to see him succeed, man. He did so well. But I don't know. It was like at the time, I don't think I really cared who I worked with or worked against. It was just I was just enjoying the moment. Whoever I was able to work with, I was happy with. It didn't matter where they were on the card, man. I just wanted to go out and do my craft and do my thing.
Yeah, definitely. In ECW, you were part of the stable of Baldies. Who came up with the idea to have you as part of the stable, and was it right away that they had you in the stable as soon as you got signed to ECW, or how did that come into fruition?
They kind of, I think they were they were going around, if I remember right, and it's been a while, but I think it was when they were about to go on, I think it was TNA, when they were kind of wanting to go under TNA, but they wanted to change. I don't know if it was Paulie or if it was TNA or TNN. Maybe that's it. Wherever they got that contract to be on TNN, but I don't know if it was them, the company that wanted ECW to kind of tone it down a little bit. But whenever we did the house shows, I always kept it ECW hardcore, and I think Vito pitched the idea about the Baldies, because I think I said, "What about the cleaners?" And they're like, "No, we can't do the cleaners." So, because I was, have us all clean shaved and wear white t-shirts and white pants, white boots. But Polly, he nixed that idea real quick. So after that, they came up with the Baldies. So that's how we got involved with that.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you all were kind of bald. I mean.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of made sense in a way. I mean, it was a great faction. You guys did great for, short time, but in that short time, you guys were good.
Yeah, I think it was a good sideshow. You've got to have your main eventers, but you also have your main eventers are only going to be out there for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. You've got to fill the other time slots with something that's going to keep the people interested too. And Baldies, for me, I thought was a good filler. We were all off the wall. We could come up with some crazy stuff, and I just thought it was a good filler. And that was kind of towards the end of ECW anyway, because I saw the writing on the wall, because they were wanting to change ECW to more of a wrestling thing, and I didn't see it happening, because we do house shows and the fans were really upset that they weren't doing the hardcore stuff. So, and that's how I got over with the fans. It's like I'd say, let me work with New Jack, or let me work with Sabu, and I'd go out there and I'd juice it up for them, and and they'd be chanting that ECW that whole time, and they were like, "Yeah, you're keeping it hardcore."
Yep. Yeah, I think you definitely worked better as a single competitor than tag team stable competitor. Because you definitely were more hardcore,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it didn't matter to me. I just enjoyed going out there. I love to work, so.
Mm-hmm. Whatever gets you the money.
Absolutely, I enjoyed single matches.
Yeah. Who would you say you got along with the most out of the whole stable?
Well, everybody kind of, when you kind of get to that level, everybody kind of, you got a job to do, your co-workers, and you go out and do it. After the show, I was a roomie with One Man Gang. I roomed with Tommy Rogers for a little bit. I roomed with Rodney Mack for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I hung around, with them a little bit. We used to drive. We'd get in the back of Balls Mahoney's van and have One Man Gang, Tommy Rogers, Jack Victory. We're all piled in this Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine van, and we'd take off and be going to the next town, and we'd laugh. We had a good time on the road.
Yeah.
Nothing stupid, but crazy fun.
Mm-hmm. Are there any on the road stories you could share?
But, the stupidest thing that sticks in my mind that I laugh about to this day. Jack Victor, we were in Florida, and I want to say Orlando, and they had a air show going on, and of course none of us are smart enough to think ahead and maybe book a room. So we get down there, everything's sold out. We couldn't find a room. We're like, man, what are we gonna do? And the sound guy, I may butcher the story, but I think it was the sound guy. He got a room, and it's like, yeah, man, I want everybody just pile in here. And we're like, all right, cool. We got a roof over our head for the night. We're good. And we went out that night, and we went to a pizza place. And I love garlic. I mean, garlic's like my favorite herb. And I went to put garlic on, and the lid off, and I put so much garlic on that. I mean, it was this thick on that pizza. So I'm like, I go, man, I'm going to eat it anyway. So I ate all that garlic. I drank like 2 Pepsis trying to wash that powdered garlic down. And we went back, and at that time I was still drinking, so I'm sure I threw about 5 or 6 beers on top of all that soda. Anyway, we go back to the room. We're all packed in there like a bunch of sardines. And man, I started getting gas. I had to fart so bad. I was like, oh man. And I'm kind of in the middle of everybody. And I was like, I can't get up. I can't move. And Jack was laying next to me. And I said, Jack, are you awake? He's like, kind of. And I ripped this loud fart. And it stunk. It stunk up the whole room, man. I woke everybody up in that room that was sleeping, woke up. I mean, lights on, coughing, screaming, yelling at me. Cleared the whole room. Everybody left. The guy, I was sitting there with Randy. Randy left. He ended up sleeping in the van. Everybody left the room. And I'm sitting in there by myself in my stink. And I remember the next morning, boy, they wouldn't let me, they wouldn't let it go for nothing. They were on me like white on rice, man. They were, oh, dude, you need to see a doctor.
Oh, jeez. That's great. During your time in ECW, did you notice any like backstage fights break out or like any crazy things go on backstage during your time in ECW?
Yeah, the craziest thing I saw was Gang had wrestled Balls Mahoney. And for whatever got in Balls Mahoney's mind that night, he didn't think Gang was putting him over enough. So I was in the match right after or right before, and they were coming out of the ring, and I was unlacing my boots, and I just heard Balls Mahoney screaming about, Gang didn't put him over like he should. He didn't make Balls Mahoney look strong enough. And Tommy Rogers, he ran up to Gang and he said, Gang, I'm just going to tell you what's going on. Balls Mahoney's back there bad-mouthing. You didn't put him over enough, and you may not be big enough to be in the same ring with Balls Mahoney. Mm-hmm. And I've been around Gang 30 years. I've seen him mad one time, and that was it. And I'm telling you, One Man Gang was not the person you wanted to have mad at you. Mm-hmm. and he came storming back. And if it hadn't been for Tommy Dreamer and Paul Lee, Gang there would have been no more Balls Mahoney. And that was the tensest moment I saw in ECW that I witnessed.
Wow.
Because
Crazy.
I've never seen Gang never gets mad, but boy, he was upset, mad, screaming, yelling, had a chair in his hand, was going to wear out Balls Mahoney.
Wow. What a story. Was New Jack, did you ever see New Jack? Like, because I know there's been stories, like there's been good stories and the bad stories on New Jack. What side of him did you see out of him when you were in ECW?
I never had a problem with New Jack. I saw a lot of people that, said, oh, New Jack hurt him, or New Jack, did this and that. I worked with Jack, I don't know how many times. He never hurt me once.
Yeah.
Never once.
That's good. I guess you just don't want to be on his bad side. Maybe that's why.
I don't know, because I knew Jack. I knew he had a temper, but everybody's got a pushing point. But
yeah,
I never saw him. When dealings with me, we never had a problem.
Yeah.
We never had. There was never something. Oh, you missed this spot, or you didn't do this. There was none of that. I never gave him. He never gave me a reason to be mad at him, and I never gave him a reason to be mad at me.
Yeah. I know you weren't in ECW during this time, but in 1996, I'm pretty sure, was the mass transit New Jack incident. Did you hear about that when it happened, and what were like your thoughts on it, or what are your thoughts on it now after it all happened?
I didn't. I didn't hear about it then, and I've heard bubbling since I've been out of the business, but for me, unless I'm an eyewitness or somebody that was there that I trust is telling me this story, I don't believe it. Wrestling's like fishing stories. That fish gets bigger all the time. So I don't, unless I'm an eyewitness or somebody that I love and trust was there and saw it, it's blown out of proportion in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. It could be true, but I just don't. I've never been that person that listened to rumors or hearsay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good thing, I guess, because, you can't really talk about something
because, in the rest of it, you heard all kinds of things. And
oh, yeah.
And then when you talk to somebody or ask somebody about it, they'll tell you, this happened. And then the guy that was in the ring with them, you corner him and ask him. And they have the same story. So all the other stuff is lies or rumors,
Right.
It just,
yeah,
that's the way I work, and I'd ask people. I said, man, what happened? And they would tell me.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any rib stories from your time in ECW, WWF, or just in general that you don't mind sharing that you've done, witnessed, or have been done to you?
As far as ribs?
Yeah.
I wasn't I kind of had that policy, I won't rib you, you don't rib me. So there was, easy practical jokes that weren't what I consider ribs, that we would do to each other. But, I've seen guys get their eyebrows shaved. I've seen them get their pant legs cut out, they've got all their clothes for, whatever, 3 weeks or something. And somebody just happens to cut one pant leg off of each one. So for the 3 weeks they're running around, well, at least until they can get to Walmart or a store and buy some new clothes. But up to that time, they're walking around with one pant leg off and one short pant. So.
Wow. What are some differences and similarities you witnessed backstage during your time in ECW and the WWF?
The only thing with WWF and ECW, you know, different pay grades. Mm-hmm. So I can't even say that the behavior, because the boys were boys back then, you know, they did some stuff, but the professionalism was equal. You know, everybody loved the business. Everybody was going to go out and everybody could work. You know, there wasn't somebody in there that, you know, couldn't work or he wouldn't be there. So I think more with WWF, unless they were bringing somebody they didn't know and there was a question, you know, if this guy can even work. But other than that, everybody there could go. You wouldn't, you know, like I said, you wouldn't be there unless you could work. That was the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Who were some of like the easiest people to get along with during your time in WWF and ECW? Like WWF, I bet was like a big locker room to be around and like some bigger names. And like,
you know. ECW was more of a bigger locker room, where I think WWF was, or E was probably more of a clique. You know, you had your cliques, but I don't know. Like I said, I knew, you know, I ran into Shawn Michaels. I can't tell you how many times at the airport in Dallas. You know, he'd be coming, I'd be going, or I'd be going, he'd be coming. And we'd run each other, you know, getting off planes in the hallway. We'd say hello, or we'd stop and talk. I'd be with James Beard. We'd run into, you know, Terry Funk, Shawn Michaels. Ran into Steiners all the time. And when I was going through Atlanta for ECW, you know, so going up there, you pretty much know everybody, or I'd met him at one time. There's a few guys I hadn't, but for the most part, for where I was at and what I was doing there, you know, I knew everybody. I had met them, either wrestled them or knew them from a different territory or from Japan or from overseas.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Who are some like wrestlers that you still keep in touch today that are like you are still friends with from your time back then?
Still like I told you, Rodney and Jazz, I still call and talk to regular. I talk to Wild Bill Irwin pretty regular. I haven't called Gang in a while, and I kick myself, but I usually talk with One Man Gang, you know, every couple of months, and it's been my fault that I haven't. I just had a lot going on, but I talk with them. I talk to Hollywood John Tatum quite a bit, especially since we're involved with this new promotion, and that kind of excites me to be able to do this promotion, because it's going to draw some of those old guys still around that are hiding.
Oh yeah,
it'll draw them out to come out and see us. So I'm excited about that. But I talked with Iceman King Parsons not too long ago.
Ooh, wow.
I talked to just the other day. My goodness, boy, it's tough getting old. Memory, something you got in your mind just slips. It'll come back to me. But Gary Young, gorgeous Gary Young, I talked to a lot of people through people. I'll meet somebody or somebody will text me and say, hey, man, I ran into so-and-so. He said to tell you hello. So I said, hey, text them or say hello for me. But we do that a lot. If when I talk to Wild Bill Irwin, he's always like, man, if you see the boys, tell them I said hi. And I always tell him he says hi. And I always like, hey, man, tell Bill I said hello. I haven't talked to him in a while. I owe him a call. So I'll call Bill back. And I said, oh, so I just started going down the list. Well, I saw that guy. He said, say hi, But that's what we do. That's what we're all, great. We're all getting up there. I'm 64. Bill Irwin's, I think he's 70, 71. So, we've been around. It kind of
don't even look 64.
You work together with people for so long, for 30 years plus. You work or see the same people almost daily. And then, you you go to a different territory, or you go to work somewhere else, and you see a few of the same people, but then you get used to seeing them every day, different people.
Yeah.
But when you're done with wrestling, it's like outside of the reunions, like we have one in Dallas that you get to see some of the local Dallas guys again. But life goes on, and we kind of separate our, go away from the business. And it's not that I don't want to keep in touch. It's just like I live in Louisiana, Bill lives in Duluth, Minnesota. So, we stay in contact by dropping each other a phone call. So, and that's what we do. I go to some of the wrestling cons, and I'll see a bunch of people, Bill Eadie, and I saw Kevin Von Erich at the last one I was at too. And, it was always good to see those guys again. Al Perez, always good to see them.
Oh yeah, that's what's good about like those WrestleCons and like wrestling fan fests. Yeah. Definitely for the wrestlers because they get to see old friends of theirs that they haven't probably seen in a while, and then also for the wrestling fans getting to meet them. But also like I mentioned, it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to the one in North Carolina last year, and I had a ball, had a blast. Got to see a lot of old friends and faces I hadn't seen in a long time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Have you been in touch with Stone Cold since your guys' time, like as a team?
No, he's another one that I have a friend of mine, Lori Hurst. She lives in Dallas. My son lives in Atlanta, and he's friends with Stone Cold's brother. And we Steve and I communicate between them. My son will text me, hey, Steve said to tell you hello. I said, tell him hello. Hope he's doing good, feeling good.
Yeah.
You don't, it's a business. And you may be on the road with the same person, but when the business is over, everybody's got their own lives, and families, and, just it's life. Everybody separates, If I've got 5 good friends in the world, I'm doing good. So that I stay in contact with all the time.
Right. And then since we're on the topic of Steve Austin, getting to be a team with him, what was it like, and how did you guys form a team and just being with him?
It formed in with Lawler and Jarrett in USWA. That's where it kind of took hold. And then working for Gary Hart, it came together more. And Steve and I were both working for Chris Adams. Chris was doing his own promotion, do shows in Oklahoma and stuff. So we were working together quite a bit. And then as it came down to, they wanted us to go to Memphis and tag team. They wanted us to do that territory. And Steve had already done it. And this would have been probably his second or third go around with that. It would have been my second go around. And I happened to get a deal going to Japan right at that same time. And the money was better. And back then that was the bottom line, was just making, you're trying to make money while you can. And it just happened to work out that was going to be better money. And that's kind of where we went our different ways. I went to Japan, and, he struggled and went on to become Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know how the guy made it.
Right. And then to where he is today, I mean, it's crazy. He's still big in the company and doing things with them. It's great to see where he is now.
He was the company at one time. Steve had that company on his shoulders because they were going down fast, and because of Stone Cold Steve Austin, he had that company on his shoulders and made it what it was. It carried it through a time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree. For a short time in your career, you worked for World Class WCCW. What was it like getting to work for the company, and what are some memories and everything working for them?
Well, I have a lot of memories of the Von Erichs. I have memories of Fritz. A lot of memories with Akbar. We not only worked there, but we worked in USWA. We did some stuff together. Then we did more in GWF later on. So, I just remember the talent that was in WCCW at the time. It was incredible. I mean,
oh yeah,
there was so much talent, and they really could have been something really huge. And in fact, if Fritz would have wanted it, he could have gone worldwide with it before McMahon ever did. And if the boys would have had a better business head, who knows? I may be still working for them today. So, it's one of those things. But there was a huge amount of talent,
Oh yeah.
Met Black Bart there. Bart was a dear friend till he passed away not too long ago. And I just met so many solid people. Killer Tim Brooks, who took me under his wing when I got to Texas and just helped me. I worked with Tim. I worked with Dick Murdoch, Terry Funk. All these people that went through World Class. Brian Adidas, The Simpsons. I mean, the unlimited talent, man. I mean, it was big. You had to live in that day to realize how big that was, because it was as big as WWE was. In Texas and that surrounding area, it was huge.
Yeah, that was a huge company, like you were mentioning, with many great names that you were also mentioning.
Right.
And I don't know, do you care to share the story of when you and Chris Adams were in a match and he pulled your hair out?
Yeah. That was my claim to fame. I don't know. I had a weave in, and everybody knew it. Chris knew it, especially. And I don't know. One night, Chris just kind of lost his mind and decided he either thought it would be funny for him too, or he was gonna, I don't know, do it intentionally to hurt me. So anyway, during that match, he decided to reach down and yank it off, and it ripped my scalp so bad I had 209 stitches in my head that night. They had to call in a neurosurgeon to sew my head back together. So, everybody's like, everybody thought it was funny until then. And when Chris heard it, he was calling me every day, begging for his life. And I kind of let it go for a little bit. Then I got my revenge later. I ended up breaking his ribs. I broke his arm. I cut his hair off in a match. So, payback, I guess, comes. You look back at now as a believer and said, I don't know. But at the time, I was very angry and very upset. And I did what I did. And I'm sorry Chris is not here because I'd like to hear his side of the story. So I don't say too much about it. Dark Side of the Ring, I tried to explain to them what happened. And I've never seen the episode, but I know it's out. And I don't know if they used what I told them in the story or if it was, fabricated or amplified by them for
who knows?
dramatic effect. So, but I hate talking about somebody that can't defend themselves because they're not here. Chris had a lot of demons, he had a lot of problems, and it's sad the way his life ended because he was so miserable. He was so miserable in life, And Chris was a great guy, sober. When you met Chris sober, he was just wonderful. But man, get that alcohol in him, and he turned into Dr. Jekyll real quick.
Wow. Yeah. Now to bring it back to like the ECW thing. During your time in ECW, was Paul Heyman an easy guy to approach and talk to? And did you ever communicate with him one-on-one and whatnot?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, I thought Paul and I had a good relationship. He may think different, but I thought we had a wonderful relationship. I could approach him at any time, any place. If I had something on my mind, I'd tell him, or if I had an idea. And towards the end, he didn't really, he'd fly me in. I'll put it this way. He used to fly me in to watch the monitor and pay me to watch a monitor and kind of help out the wrestlers with some of the matches.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was good. I was good with that because, I knew, I guess, that my time was short with them. I like I told you, I saw the writing on the wall. It was either going to fold or it was going to go into something else. And I just enjoyed the ride, and talking with Paul was always fun. Paul was always upbeat and happy. I remember when he came down to Louisiana and we were doing shows in my neck of the woods down here. And he got off the plane. He was like, it was like July and August. It was probably 90 with 85% humidity. It was one of those miserable, no breeze, just miserable hot days.
Oh,
and he got off the plane. He was sweating. He was like, and people live here, man.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Because I know some people, it's hard for like some people to talk to their bosses as like, like Vince McMahon and WWF, WWE. It was hard to talk to him. So like, you never know with which company,
Yeah. I had probably 3 conversations with Vince, and none of them were, bad. They were all good. So, I wasn't, of course, I was just in and out help. I wasn't under contract. I was on per night contract was my deal. You get paid if you work that night. So we're bringing you in for, 3-4 weeks, and then we'll see you maybe in another 2 or 3 months or something, which was fine. I was good with that. But you know what? I was able to work for every company. Hollywood and I worked shows for WCW, and I was able to work for all the major companies. I was able to go to Japan. I was able to go overseas and work everywhere. I wouldn't change my career. I'm happy with it. I'm satisfied. I'm just in another time in my life that more things are more important to me than wrestling.
Yeah, of course.
Wrestling's high up there. I really love wrestling, but there's about 5 other things more important in my life than wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. In your career, what would you say has been like the worst injury you've restrained from wrestling?
In Japan, I went over the top rope, and in Japan they do 20 by 20 rings, and they've got like probably a 14-inch apron that sticks out. It's a little more than a foot of an apron. Most aprons, maybe 8 inches. Some are even smaller, but they have bigger aprons. And I went out over the top rope, and I always held the ropes to help me from killing myself going over the top rope. But in Japan, when I went over, I came down and I hit my hip, the side of my hip, on the apron, and it hurt. But I really didn't think anything of it. It hurt and it was bothering me. And I went to Korea, and I got suplexed on. I called the spot. I took a suplex on the concrete, and kind of. I already had a bad hip. I took the suplex on the concrete, and I kind of folded my pelvis a little bit. I went home. I went back to the hotel that night, and I was sitting there, and it felt like a bone was going to shoot right through my bladder every time I stood up. If I stood up, I felt like a bone was going through. So I'm kind of walking hunched over, and JBL was with me. He's like, man, he said, Rod, let me try to crack your back or crack your hip. So he popped me, and it released my pelvis, but it made my hip hurt worse. So I limped through the last maybe 5-6 days of the tour, and then we went home, and we got home. We had a day off before we hit the road again, and I went to see a doctor, and he took an X-ray, and just a deep bruise, nothing to worry about. So I was like, okay, it's already been almost a week and a half since I heard it. So I was like, I'll put ice on it and heal it. Got some pain pills, worked through it. About 5 weeks into this, it's still hurting. It's like something wrong. I had a little Filipino doctor in Terrell, Texas that everybody used to go down to. If you needed medication, he was the guy you went to see. So I went down. I saw him when I got back because I needed a up. And then a couple of weeks later, I went back to see him, and I said, man, I've got this problem in my hip. I go, pain won't go away. So he's probably 5'1", and he's got an X-ray machine in there. He puts me on the X-ray machine, tugs on my leg, man. I'm screaming. He's just like, just hold it right now. I'm like, I'm trying. And he got an x-ray, and come to find out, I had a hairline fracture in the ball part of your ball and socket on the ball. I had a hairline, well, not a hairline, but I had a fracture in it. And he's like, he goes, how long has it been? And by that time, it was almost 4 weeks, you know, since the first injury. So he's like, it's a broken bone. It's going to heal, you know. He goes, the reason it's hurt so bad because you're working all the time. You're running around. You're going and working and bouncing off of it every night. He said in about 2 or 3 weeks, it'll go away. So he gave me some more medicine and said, you know, if it's not gone in 2 or 3 weeks, when you come back through, come see me again. 2 or 3 weeks later, I came back through and it was fine. I was good to go. But that injury haunted me up till I got my hip replaced last year. And the surgeon that did it was like, he's like, I've seen some bad hips in my life, but he said that one's bad. I had a golf ball size bone spur on that ball, and that was from that injury. He's like, did you break that hip? And I said, well, I had a fracture in the ball. He said, they didn't put a screw in. I go, you know, I told him the story. I didn't know. You know, I didn't know. Right. They didn't find it out till it was almost healed. So he's like, wow, incredible.
Yeah.
But that was the worst injury. I mean, every night you're beat up. You know, you work every night. You get used to, you know, you get used to a certain level of pain. And I wasn't a big pill popper back then. I took them when I was hurting like that. And once I could go, you know, I didn't take the pills. But, you know, I was drinking beer at the time back in those days. So I drank a lot of beer back in those days. And I guess that was my painkiller. So.
Right.
Never had to, I never was one to pop a pill and, you know, drink beers with them. That wasn't me.
Yeah. Out of all the stipulations you have got to do in ECW, what would you say was like the most painful and or favorite one that you got to do? That's a tough question. Because, you know, for me and for One Man Gang, we worked with everybody. You know, we didn't say, you know, Paul never said, okay, we're going to do an angle with you guys. We're going to do, you know, then we want you to work with them. Every time we went in, it was, you know, okay, this is what we want you to do. Gang and I did for one of the pay-per-views, it wasn't a dark match. It was a match before the dark match. I guess to check the sound. Anyway, they said, we need you guys to go out. I worked with Roadkill and I think Nova. And Gang and I tagged against Roadkill and Nova, and we did like 20-minute match. And that was the weirdest thing in my life. Gang was just like, I've worked Madison Square Garden. I've never opened up for the dark match ever in my life. Wow. Yeah. You had a match against Mike Awesome and then RVD, multiple matches against RVD, which you mentioned in 1999 for the ECW World Television title, which you had a few of those matches. And then you also had matches for the ECW tag team titles against the Dudleys and time after time. How did you feel in those moments, getting like title shots in ECW? How did those moments feel?
Well, I knew the finish, so to me it wouldn't have mattered. You know, it wouldn't have mattered. I loved working Mike Awesome. I thought he was an incredible talent, man. I thought the Dudleys were incredible. Rob Van Dam, I mean, he took a level to another level. You know, Rob Van Dam did some stuff in the ring that a lot of these guys are still trying to do. And I was always that guy, though. You know, even in World Class or USWA, I may get the title for a week, and then they drop it. They want me to drop it to somebody, and then I was always the guy going in to. I was always, I guess, the number one contender.
Yeah.
If I was in a tag match, we were the number one contender. You know, we'd go in, but that I felt that was a compliment, because usually the guys were the young champs and they were trying to get them over. We did it with Booker T and Stevie Ray. You know, they were up and coming young talent, and boy, did they have good careers. But you know, we were able to go in and do our job, get them over, make them look good, and get a lot of heat on them. Those matches were so easy when you got a good baby face in there.
Oh yeah, for sure. What was your experience like working for USWA, and what are some like random or favorite memories you have from working in that company?
Working in USWA was it was an education, because there's such a difference between Memphis style wrestling and Texas style wrestling. Texas is, you know, brawling, hard, stiff matches, whereas USWA was more comic relief type matches. You know, I worked with Bill Dundee, and everybody used to call him the Giant Killer. But, you know, everybody in the business went through Memphis. You know, it was, you had to go through there and work with Lawler, you worked with Dundee, you worked with everybody that was there. And it was nothing but great experience. You know, I enjoyed working there, because it educated me on a different level on how to work. And in wrestling, back then in wrestling, you know, there was all different styles. There was all, you know, you were doing very well in the business if you could have a good match with anybody. And that's what I wanted. That's the type of wrestler I wanted to be.
Definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, USWA was also a great company too, with many great talent.
Oh, the people went through Memphis. But it was the last actual territory. You know, it held out the longest, and you knew going in there you weren't going to make a lot of money, and you knew there was a lot of travel in it, because the third time, I guess, when it was USWA and WWE and ECW, I was putting 10,000 miles a month on my vehicle. Traveling, because I would work all the way up to Evansville, Indiana, and come back. I was staying in Memphis at the time. And then I had every other week I had Sunday off. So after the show Saturday, I'd get a booking somewhere back in Louisiana, like, you know, it could be New Orleans. And I drive down and work that match, get in the car and drive back up and be there for Monday morning. You know, just the way it was, because Saturday mornings was TV and a spot show in the afternoon, and then Sunday was, most of the time you had Sundays off. There was a few independent shows you could pick up, you know. A lot of guys just took it off, but I tried to work as much as I can. And, you know, if I knew when I went to Louisiana, it was going to be I would make what I was making for the week in Memphis in one match.
Yeah.
So for me, it was worth it back then.
Yep. You also got to work for NWA. What was it like getting to work for NWA and then also winning the NWA Texas Heavyweight Championship?
I worked NWA Crockett when he came to Texas. I worked for him, and it was very short-lived. It was it was an experience. Crockett came in, and for whatever reason, he wanted to turn back time, because by the time Crockett came in, everybody had intro music. You know, everybody had the flashing lights that was going on. Crockett came in to the Sportatorium with the NWA, and he wanted to turn back the clock where there was no intro music. It was just dead when you walked out. And, you know, people were so conditioned. The wrestlers were so conditioned to hear music that walking out just flat, that was part of the reason why it didn't last long. And with Crockett. Now I worked for another group in Dallas, was NWA, and that's where I got the title. But that I took that gig because I was right before I went to ECW, and I was trying to get Rodney Mack work. So Rodney and I would, I think it was Saturday night. We'd leave Saturday morning and wouldn't get back till it was 18-hour round trip.
Oh,
it was in Fort Worth at the time, and it was 18-hour driving round trip. And, you know, time we got there, did the show, grabbed something to eat, got in the car and came home. It was, you know, it was 6 o'clock Sunday morning, 6 or 7 o'clock Sunday morning when we got home. But I enjoyed the time. I got to work Dan Severin in there, and I enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed working with all the guys I had brought in. But my main goal at that time was to get Rodney Mack in it, and I did it for a while. I did it for 2 or 3 months, and then they switched buildings to the venue that they had was awesome. They were selling out every night. It was a good show, and then when they switched venues, they lost a lot of people. But he was building up. He was building up, and by that time, I was tired of driving 18 hours every Saturday, you know. And I told Rodney, look, man, you're in the door, take it and run with it. And probably not more than probably 3 weeks after I kind of told Rodney to take it over and do it himself, I went to ECW. So, you know, everything worked out. I was living in Lafayette at the time, and they wanted me to move to New Orleans, which I did, and just to be closer to the airport. And that's what I did. I went down there. I worked with ECW for a couple of years, and then when I was done with that, I went back into plumbing and was working full time. And I had a school in Gulfport, and enjoyed that. And Hurricane Katrina wiped out my school, wiped out the Gulf Coast, but took my school out. And kind of after that, I still worked local independents for a long time, but in fact, I was working almost 3 or 4 nights a week doing independent and working a full-time job. So when I hung it up, I was done. You know, my body was starting to feel it. I was getting up there, and you know, it was time. But I enjoyed. You talk about a good ride. The Lord's been good to me. He blessed me the whole time, man. I had a ball. You know.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Definitely. And you officially retired in 2010, correct?
Yeah, I did one more match in 2018 with Mark Von Erich. We did it in Houston, and that was officially my last match after that. And then I started working for SWE as an agent, going to Texas for a while. I enjoyed that. I'm working with still working with UWE, which is out of Alexandria, and we just got TV. Dapper Dan, that's his company, and James Beard's the booker, and I go in there and I help with the matches. I manage a little bit, and now with the TV coming up, that'll be something to enjoy. It's fun again, you know, wrestling fun. I don't have to go out there and beat myself up. I get to watch other people beat themselves up. So from my point of view, it's great. And then with the school going, I'm enjoy that because I really enjoyed training and teaching, you know, and that's what I did with UWE. It was, you know, try to teach them things and share the Lord with them, and the Lord I think he kind of tested me with that to see if I was going to follow through, and I was faithful with it. And now with this opportunity in Texas, it's just, for me, it's just the next step in my life, my walk with Christ. So
definitely, that's awesome.
You know,
yeah. There was some time in your wrestling career you got to work in Puerto Rico, and you also won a championship there. What are some stories and memories of getting to work in Puerto Rico? Are there any like crazy stories of being there?
We went in there. Akbar went over there and started booking, and I was like, okay, you know, he wanted me to come in, and I came in, and I stayed about 3 months, and it was crazy. You know, the fans down there are they're crazy intense, man. The office used to sell these peanut M&Ms, and they bought them just to throw them at the American wrestlers. You know, they had their homeboys, but you know, we were heels, so they hated us, and man, they were a rough crowd. You know, Philadelphia is a rough crowd, but they got nothing on Puerto Rico fans. Not
but yeah, I've heard stories about like, have you ever had like tried or like almost got stabbed or whatever? Because I've heard multiple stories of that almost happening to a lot of people.
I didn't get at when I won the Caribbean Heavyweight Championship. It was at a baseball field, and I think I can't remember the name of the town, but it was packed. And when I cheated to win, and man, they threw bottles. I had the belt, and thank God I did. I was blocking bottles, pieces of angle iron that they could rip off the bleacher. They were throwing anything they could throw at you, and I never. Thank God I was never in a position where they, you know, going to get knifed. But going down there with Akbar, we were the first tour back after Brody got killed down there. So it was intense.
Were Did you like have any nerves? Were you scared at all to even go? Because since knowing that,
I had my only reservations were with the office, and
Mhm.
because I had to work with Joe Vica, and Joe Vica was in the office, but I had the assassin. I had my reservations, and it wasn't that I was fearful for myself. I just had a lot of resentment for what had happened down there.
Right.
And, and I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of the boys really had a bad taste about that. And Puerto Rico, it's miserable. It's a miserable island. They've got rolling blackouts that your electricity is on from like, I don't know, it kicks on at 7 o'clock in the morning and kicks off like at 8 o'clock at night or something. And you'd be hot and tired and sweaty. And you go home and you just want to, time you got back, it was late. Time you got something to eat, it was later. And you go back and the room's just steaming hot, humidity, it was miserable, man. I lost so much weight down there.
That's it's crazy.
But it was another good experience overall.
Yeah, definitely.
Besides all that.
Yeah. What are some differences and similarities you could see from wrestling in the States, Japan, Puerto Rico, and Germany? I mean, obviously there's a lot of differences, but I know that the fans can be a lot different, and then food and just in general.
Well, in Japan, it was more of a contest instead of a match. So, in America, where they're always screaming and yelling and clapping, in Japan, they didn't do that. They were very quiet. If you did something good in the ring, they would applaud. Mm-hmm. So my first tour over there, it took me a little while to adjust to working in front of a Japanese crowd. It was different. Everywhere else was pretty much like, I worked in South Africa. I worked for I went all over, but I worked in Korea a lot. And Korea was completely different. They were more like American fans. I think for me, it was only Japan that was the culture shock of getting used to how the fans react and what you had to do to get that reaction from them,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people who've wrestled down in Japan that Japan is like a lot different.
Yeah, because back then it was totally different from the way they worked in the United States.
Oh yeah.
And the fans they saw it as a real contest. So, there wasn't goofing around. Everybody, we worked stiff, we worked hard. They worked you every night that you were there. We always said,
yeah,
from the time we landed till the last day. And our last day was always extended because we go 2 weeks to Korea. But if you were only doing Japan, when they were done, they would drop you off 6 hours before your flight was leaving. So when they were done with you, it was like, okay, we're done. They paid you. So you're sitting there 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours. You'd be sitting in the airport going, oh, all right.
Wow. Fun. Would you rather have joined BWO, NWO, DX, or APA?
I think APA.
Yeah.
I think if I would have had my choice and my opportunity, just because I know they worked, but they had to me they had the easiest gig. You know, it was fun. So
Oh yeah.
that if I would have had opportunity, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, they had some great storylines and some great
Oh yeah,
things that they did. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you've mentioned. Yeah, I know you mentioned you have wrestled around a lot of places in the world, but has there been somewhere that you haven't gotten to wrestle that you wished you could have?
Yeah, I never got to go to Australia. There was tours I was booked on, but they always one tour made it as far as Singapore, and then they canceled Australia. And the other one was we were going to Australia. It was supposed to have been like a 6 or 8 week tour, and it was all go. Everything was a go up to about, I don't know, almost 3 or 4 days before we were supposed to leave, and it fell through. You know, it's the money guy. The money wasn't there, or the money wasn't right. So, you know, for whatever reason, it worked out, because I certainly wouldn't want to go halfway around the world and not get paid for it. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. What has been a venue that you wish you could have wrestled in?
The only regret is I never got to work Madison Square Garden, the old garden. I never got to work there, and I wish I had that opportunity.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a huge wrestling.
Yeah, it just had, you know, it's like a sportatorium. It had so much history, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. You and Hollywood John Tatum teamed up as in the Indies as California Connection, which we mentioned a little bit. What are some memories and moments that you remember that you could share from your time teaming with him that you may have not have shared already and whatnot?
Working with John was great. You know, I learned so much from John about the psychology of the business. I thought I had a pretty good grasp of psychology in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I worked with John, about the first 6 months, I was just like, I don't know nothing. You know, he retaught me and took it to a whole nother level. I mean, John could do things that other people only dream about with reading a crowd or what to do at a certain time and how to react. And I took that when we broke up. I took that away, and that helped me so much later on in my career. I mean, it was a fun time. I loved working with John. I'm so happy I get to work with him again. I really enjoy him, and had so much. There was so much going on with you know, with us working and traveling together, and you know, everybody thought, oh, you guys are out every night. It's like, no, man. if we went out, it was special. You know, it was a treat.
Yeah.
But just running the roads and working together and building that relationship with him, and I still years after I was out of the business, he was living in Pensacola at the time, and I'd go over and see him all the time, you know, just to visit with him, and still talk on a regular basis with him today. So
yeah,
it was a good time.
Definitely. Out of all the storylines and promos that you have done in ECW with the Baldies, or just in general, which would you say has been like your favorite one that you remember doing?
With the Baldies, I don't remember doing a lot, because when I first came in, I was with Just Incredible, Jack Victory, Jason Knight, and Francine, was involved. So I even think Sonny was around at that time too. So we had the matches made absolutely no sense. They were all schmazes. It was always chaos, but it was a fun time, and it was so different because doing TV was one thing where we may just be in the background, but at the house shows, we were all on the mic and all talking and all doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I understand it was too much for you couldn't have the time for the TV slot to fit all that in. So doing TV, it was kind of more of either Just Incredible was getting the push. He was the main dog, so we let him do all the talking, he did most of the wrestling. Mm-hmm. We were more of the backup. If he got in trouble, we would interfere, and
right.
It was fun,
Yeah. And you mentioned Sunny. What was she like to be around in ECW?
I kind of have mixed things because when she wasn't sewn up and she was awake, it was a good conversation. She was. Mm-hmm. I thought she was fairly intelligent and could carry on a reasonable conversation, but those times were few and far in between. Most of the time, I remember her slumped up, put her head on the desk, sewn it out. So, that was that's my memories of Sunny. I met her in WWF, and she was on such a different level that say hi and hello, but they had her doing so much at the time. It was hard to, if we had a conversation, it was brief. How you doing? But ECW, we I had a few fairly good conversations with her, because I knew Chris and I was friends with him, and always talk with him, even in WWE, and I saw him. I saw some other boys would come through just to visit ECW and talk with them because I knew them. And
right.
Chris Jericho, he went through ECW, so he would come by on the regular whenever we were in his area, or if he had time, he always stopped by on the regular.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's sad to see where Sunny is today, but whatever.
Yeah. Tragic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've gotten to interview Chris Candino's brother, Johnny Candino, and I've heard multiple stories on Chris and Sunny, and it was a great interview to hear what he had to say and stuff. So he's a pretty cool guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were there any times in your career where you wanted to do a different persona or something almost came up about doing something different, but it never came into fruition or never happened?
I was good with the character that I was doing, and there were some opportunities that were supposed to go my way. One was in USWA. They were going to groom me to be the heavyweight champ, and we were going that way, but then the company folded, so that kind of washed out. But I mean, that was a disappointment, but having the company fold is is a bigger disappointment because you're unemployed. So
Yeah.
And when that happened, that's when I moved to Louisiana because there was a lot of little territories going on, and I knew I could come down. When I came down here, I was working on a regular basis, so everything was good timing for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And then ECW came around, so.
Yep, that's right. You had a contract working with the NFL for 2 years from 1985 to 1987. You worked for the Raiders and then the Chargers. What are some memories and stories of working for the NFL? And what team did you like working for better?
Well, I'll tell you the story. I was with the Rams, and back then, the more positions you played, the better chance you had of hooking up with the team. And I deep snapped, and that's really what kept me around the most because I had a specialty. And then the Rams, first year the Rams would, they'd cut you, they'd bring you back, they'd cut you, they'd bring you back, and then with the Raiders, I went to the Raiders and was just that was my childhood team, man. I was like, wow, couldn't wait, and I got to the facility, and Steve Ortmeyer came up to me. I swear, I just got a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I went over there, had a little coffee thing. I got a coffee, and Steve Ortmeyer was a player personnel, and he told me, he said, "Don't unpack. You're going to San Diego." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Don't worry, I'm going with you." So I drank my coffee, and they wanted, back then they used to give you bus tickets, and I had and I still was in the LA area, and I had my car, and I was like, just give me the cash for trans, gas and food. Said I'll go down there. So that was my Raiders experience. But
Wow.
San Diego was the same way. You went in, and they had I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a deep snapper and a tight end, and he got hurt. He got hurt in practice, and they didn't know how long he was going to be out. And they brought me in. I went through the last 4 or 5 weeks of training camp with San Diego, and he was kind of there's still question about it. He was healing, but they wanted to keep me around. So after camp, they said, "Look, we're going to cut you, then we're going to bring you back." So they put me in a hotel for I think it was about 10 days, almost 2 weeks.
Oh,
They said, "Don't worry." They paid me per diem every day. I was never in want. And then they came by, and I'd go to the facility and work out and train. And they said, "Okay, we'll bring you back as a practice squad just in case this guy can't do it." So they brought me back for about, I think it was like 5 weeks with San Diego, and the guy healed up, so they didn't need me. So I got cut and went back and played semi-pro football, and by then I was wrestling. So
yeah.
I was staying busy.
Oh yeah. If you have had stayed in NFL and they would have kept you, would you have been there longer? And would have wrestling been pushed back?
Yeah, wrestling definitely. If it would have worked out for me with the NFL, I definitely would have hung in there for as many years as, as they wanted me, but in case of me, it wasn't that long, but
Right.
it was, it was a dream come true. I enjoyed every minute, every practice, every time, because things back then were so different from what they do now, and we scrimmaged every day, and I was on the practice squad, and we were nothing but you were nothing but meat, and you got beat up in practice a lot, and you took your lumps and your injuries, and then when I hurt my knee, I had 2 surgeries, 2 arthroscopic surgeries on it, and after I healed, they cut me, and I was wrestling, and wasn't so sure I was gonna go back, and kind of still had that urge, and I had an opportunity to go to San Francisco, and it was just, wasn't healed up good. I was slower, and just wasn't going to pan out. I knew 2 weeks into it that there's no way, and sure enough, they cut me, and right after that, I ended up packing up and going to Texas right after that.
Yeah. Are there any memories or stories of, did you ever get to work in Wisconsin?
Yeah, with ECW. We went through Wisconsin, went through Michigan, Minnesota. I worked, I think when I worked with Bruiser's company, because I was living in Texas, but he ran a promotion on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, and he asked me, he goes, "Look, we're going to Wisconsin to do a little house show." Said, "Would you mind hanging over?" And I was like, "I'm here, man." And I had family around, so I was like, "Yeah, I'm here." So I worked 2 shows for him in Indiana and 1 in Wisconsin on that tour. That was early 90s.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I know ECW sometimes came to like Milwaukee and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. They I was hoping, that they were I was really hoping ECW would have got some stronger backing where they could really, compete across the country. I was kind of looking forward to traveling with them, and we did a lot. We did a lot of East Coast. We did a lot of up and down the East Coast. We did Texas. We did Louisiana, Mississippi. I did with. I'm pretty sure they went other places after that, but New York was their home base. So I got to work in a lot of places that wouldn't get to work in. So I enjoyed that part of ECW too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Was there any time in your career that you have accidentally broken out of your wrestling persona while you were wrestling, or any moment?
Not really. I was so trained old school that you don't break character, that it just, I seen other guys do it and thought it was funny because you never see them do it. So I thought it was funny, but for me, I never did. I was trained old school way, and that's the way I train, because what they're doing now in WWE is kind of like what we're doing in ECW. you can only go so far with what they're doing. I mean,
Right.
sooner or later, it's got to get back to wrestling, because you can only do so many, ladder matches. So many of the spots they do, it just blows my mind. Sooner or later, it's got to come back around to doing wrestling. And the fans, especially in Texas, that's what they've been clamoring for. And what we're going to do, there's Booker T has a school in Houston. You've got Dustin Rhodes in Austin. You've got Rodney and Jazz got the Dog Pound in San Antonio. Rudy Gonzalez is doing kind of his lucha libre out of San Antonio.
Yeah.
And there's a small group in Fort Worth, but in that Dallas Metroplex area, there's nothing. East Texas has NWA wrestling, but in that Dallas Metroplex, there's nothing. So that market is pretty much tapped. So I think going in there is going to be a perfect time, because those fans, they want the old style wrestling back, and that's what they've been screaming for.
Oh yeah, definitely. What's cool is that I'm actually going to Texas for my band trip coming up in April too. So that's cool.
Whereabouts?
San Antonio, actually.
Okay.
From April 8th to the 13th.
Okay. I was going to say, man, if you're in the Fort Worth area, you need to stop by the show.
Yeah. But, yeah. It's a school thing, so, I mean, we have stuff planned. We're going to be going to, like, I'm blanking out on what, Six Flags. I think we're going to some other fun places around there and stuff like that. So we're going to be
good
adventuring.
Well, good for you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you put in? Can we wrap this up?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to do another one, I'll be happy to do another one with you, man. It's 2 hours is about my limit.
All right. Yeah. All right. I'll wrap it up with, do you have any advice to give me to become a professional wrestler? Because I ask everybody this.
Come to my school. That would be my advice. Seriously, my advice would be, if you want to be a professional wrestler, you've really got to want to be a professional wrestler, because it takes a toll on your body, and you're young now, but when you get my age, you'll know. But you got to be willing to make that commitment, to set a goal on what you want to do once you become a professional wrestler. If your goal is to, just work independence in the area, or if you have higher aspirations to go on, whatever you want to do, whatever your dream is, be laser focused on that dream, and then chase it with everything you got.
Thank you. And thank you for taking the time out to do this.
Brother, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I love talking about the Lord, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity. Usually when I do a podcast, I have to squeeze it in somehow, but I thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my testimony. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Of course. I love hearing testimonies. I love hearing stories about other people, how they've came a long way with following the Lord, because I follow that, and so it's amazing to hear. So I'm glad you shared that.
The Lord says, if you pursue Him with all your heart and mind, He will give you the desires of your heart. So
yes,
put everything into the Lord. Put Him first in your life. Everything else will follow through.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have a blessed night.
Thank you for having me, man. Like I said, if you want to do it again, I'd be more than happy. Maybe after I get the wrestling school going and the promotion up and running, we could do another one. But I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. All right. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.